because we're constantly looking for the negative in everything. Well, we didn't do this yet. We didn't do that yet. And then we wait and we think about it. And it takes some time to get used to figuring out what we actually are proud of or what a win is.
ADHD Rewired, episode 505. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Brooke Schnittman. By the way, I loved your, when I asked you to write it out phonetically, because I always ask my guests that, your response was like, Hitman, and then you had the fuck my life emoji, like, which I loved. All right, I've already interrupted myself with my tangential thoughts, so I'm going to keep introducing you. So you are a professional coach who understands firsthand the challenges of living with ADHD. As an adult with late ADHD diagnosis, Brooke knows what it feels like to feel frustrated, overwhelmed, and ashamed. But instead of giving up, Brooke decided to use her personal experiences to help others with ADHD. She left the school system in 2018 to create a specially tailored program for individuals with ADHD called 3C Activation, which focuses on the importance of boundaries and small actions to activate potential and achieve continued success through maintaining momentum. All right. Well, Brooke,
You did it.
I did it. So tell me, first of all, who are you? Like, how did you get into this space? Other than what you just said right here.
Well, it's funny that you commented about my last name because I'm married, but that's my maiden name and I have not changed it. And growing up, I was like, oh, I can't wait to change that last name. And now all of my executive functions is pulling me away from changing my last name.
All the paperwork that's involved.
Oh my gosh. I even paid extra to get a whole folder of paperwork to help me through it. It literally sat on my desk and I think it's still there from 3 years ago when I got married. And I'm like, not doing this.
Yep. Relatable.
Yes. So who am I? I am an ADHD coach and founder of Coaching with Brooke. I have a company similar to yours. I have 8 coaches and we work worldwide with students and adults and parents. And we've worked with thousands. Before that, I was a special education teacher and assistant director of special education in the school system. And like I said, I just realized as an administrator that not only did I not go into teaching to be an administrator, there was so much red tape. And I wanted to make that bigger impact in a different way. And I figured it out along the journey that I wanted to be an ADHD coach. Didn't realize I had ADHD at the time, even though working with ADHDers at that time for over 13 years. Fast forward 5 years later, here I am. I love what I do.
So let's talk about some of the stuff that you are doing in your business and some of the things that you really like to help your clients with. Now, with your 3C activation, talk through that with us. And go ahead.
Sure. So 3C activation stands for control, consistency, and confidence. So when I first started one-on-one coaching, I was working with students and adults. And the one thing with adults at that time was they were saying, I really like this whole one-on-one coaching thing, but I need to learn from others who have ADHD as well and understand their journey. So I took all my one-on-one clients at the time and I put them into a group, a small group. And we literally just worked on whatever it was that they were all coming up with a common theme on. And I would create a lesson because that's what I used to do, make lesson plans. Every week they had a new theme that I was hearing. So I would create a new lesson based on their journey. We did that for 12 weeks. It was every other week. And they loved it so much that then we did another 12 weeks every other week. And there were 6 more lessons. So I put all those lessons together and realized this makes a huge impact. And that's essentially how I started 3C activation, through the need, through discovery and exploration, and just seeing what the journeys of adults with ADHD needed and their themes. So I've been doing 3C activation now for 4 years. It's in a small group of 8 adults with ADHD, and we go through the first 4 weeks with understanding the chaos of their ADHD brain, understanding how their brain works and how they're showing up for themselves and how they're showing up for others, and getting very clear on their negative habits so they could slow that down while starting to build some small positive habit changes. We're not making huge changes right away because there's way too much chaos going on.
Say more
They
about
set
that
goals,
part. The
Yeah.
intentionality behind not making these big changes right away. We were talking right before we record about we're both doing EMDR, and
Yes.
we were kind of saying, yes, I want.
I need this yesterday.
Yes, exactly, and I see that so often with our members too. They come in and they're like gung ho and want to do all the things and change all the things, and I'm like, slow the fuck down, narrow your focus. Less is more, slower is faster. So how do you approach that?
Absolutely. So, of course, everyone wants the magic formula right away. And the reason why we do 3C activation in 12 weeks is because we force the client to actually make a commitment to themselves over that 12-week period rather than, okay, one and done, you're fixed, you're cured. So the small habit changes, if you think of a glass and it's filled with chaos all the way to the brim, how are you going to do anything more when you don't have the physical and emotional energy? So you have to slowly remove and set boundaries, like we talked about before we got on the pod, to clear up some of that water or chip away at the rock while slowly building in positive changes and then habit stacking on that. So you just you can't create that leap and climb the ladder with huge rungs in between those steps. You'll fall flat on your face, and then you'll feel worse about yourself, and your RSD will kick in, and then you'll feel like a failure and you'll have burnout, and then you'll be worse off than when you started.
It's interesting. Just been this connection when you were sharing about the sort of, it's like preparing to do the work. I just made a TikTok video recently, and I don't know when this is coming out, so recently by the time this is out, be months ago, about the 3 steps for everything we do. And that's the setting it up, doing it, and cleaning it up. And what it sounds like what you're talking about here is the setting up, the readiness for behavioral change.
Yes. That's essentially what it is. So basically, when people come to us, they're like, I want to be more productive. I want to avoid procrastination. I want to be organized. I want to be confident. You will get there. But in order to clear the chaos in your brain, you need to figure out what is going on in your brain. So get it out, put it on in front of you onto a piece of paper, and we're going to help you pick one thing out of all of those 100,000 things that you have going on. And I know it sounds weird and it sounds uneasy and uncomfortable. Like, no, I need to do everything else right now. But no, we're going to help you be intentional about that 1% action. And then the next week, we're going to give you another 1% action until you understand what's going on with yourself. Then we implement bigger goals because now you start to build momentum. Then we do the time management phase, talk about procrastination, time sucks, organization, and productivity. And then from there, because you're building that momentum week after week with the support of the group and your accountability partner and the coach, then you're starting to feel more confidence. And then you can target some things that you didn't know you could do. So have those uncomfortable conversations you've been avoiding, start delegating, stretching your goals even further. Those kind of things which feel weird and uncomfortable for us ADHDers, but you have the support of others and the support of yourself because you're finally being able to execute things over time that you haven't been able to before.
So you have control, consistency, and then I can't read what I just wrote for the third C. Thank you. I can read the CONF, and then it's literally chicken scratch after that. I couldn't make it out. So talk to me about control. What are we controlling?
We're controlling the chaos of our ADHD brain. So we are taking everything that is going on in our mind and we're putting it onto a piece of paper or, wherever you feel, because if it's in our brain, it stays there. So we have to get it out in front of us. So we do that. We evaluate all the areas of our life and we create small, actionable change. So 1% each week. Then we also learn about our strengths and our values and our motivation for wanting to do things. So in the beginning of the course, you think, oh, I want to improve my relationship with my partner. Maybe we don't communicate as well as we do. We don't spend enough quality time, or I need to do better in my job. My boss has given me a plan and I will be fired if I don't follow the plan. Or maybe I don't like my job, or, there's all these different things. But then what you come to find out are all these other things that are getting in the way. And when you realize what you actually want, rather than setting your goals based on other people's agendas, then you're truly confident. But you don't figure that out until the first 4 lessons.
To me, that's one of my favorite parts of just the coaching process is that it's like a magical onion. There's just always more layers. You never really get to a core because there's always more layers. That when someone comes in with what they think is this clear idea of what they want to do in coaching, and then after a couple of weeks, they're like, oh yeah, no, like that's important, but I realize like this other thing is actually way more important.
Way more important.
Mm-hmm. And so much of that is just like the issues around self-compassion. I tell people that if I thought that beating yourself up was an effective way to make behavioral change, I'd try to come up with some creative lesson plans.
You sound like Dr. Gabor Mate. When I interviewed him, he was saying the same thing. Like, yeah, you can create change in children by beating them. And that sounds terrible. I know. But like, you're never like, that's not the right way of doing it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's because if it worked, I would say do it. But it doesn't work. It just makes us feel like crap. And it's so I was having a conversation with my partner, and she was reflecting back to me that she thought I was being kind of hard on myself about something. And I was like, no, I just really want to be intentional, and I feel frustrated when like something I'm intending on doing, I'm like seeing that I'm not doing it. And, so I'm finding that frustrating, and she's saying like, well, you're being really hard on yourself. I'm like, yeah, but literally, I
want to do the thing.
Right. And like literally that day we had one of our group members who was being really hard on themselves. So we kind of did like a little bit of a group, like laser focus on this one person for the benefit of not just that person, but for everyone in the group. Mm-hmm. During the conversation I was having with my partner where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm actually kind of being like that guy, not realizing that I'm actually being harder on myself than I was realizing. And so it's just in the last couple of weeks, I've been like, maybe there are areas where I could benefit from a little bit more like self-compassion and self-love. And yes. It's always those things where we're like, oh, and you point to everyone else, like they need to do this. If maybe we're seeing that with everyone else, maybe it's because we're looking at a mirror
of ourselves.
Yes. And this is why it's kind of fun being in the space. It can be hard when we have these realizations, but so helpful. And I kind of love the irony of it all as well.
Yes. It's the power of being in a group. It's the power of coaching. It's the power of doing therapy. Like you see yourself in these other people and they're being so brave and sharing their experiences and sharing their journey. And you're like, wait a second. Why am I shaming myself so much?
Yeah. Do you know we have to take a quick break? When we come back, I want to talk about consistency because I have a little bit of an emotional reaction, even just hearing the word consistency.
So maybe you need some EMDR for that.
Probably, that among other things as well. We are going to take a quick break. We will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our award-winning intensive coaching and accountability groups. We meet 3 times a week for 10 weeks with daily accountability. Learn more by going to coachingrewired.com. Our 34th season of coaching groups are now full. We just kicked off our first week, and we are so excited for the upcoming weeks for all of our new members. If you want to invest in your personal growth, develop time wisdom, and find out where your time is really being spent, want to set healthier boundaries to make time for self-care and your most important goals, and begin reducing your daily overwhelm, all while learning alongside other adults with ADHD who just get it, then this is the coaching community that you've been looking for. Every season, our members remind us that even with ADHD, we can do hard things. And we don't have to do them alone. And our resilience is next level. Through our award-winning coaching program, we go beyond just sharing a ton of tools, tips, and strategies that you can use to help with your ADHD management. We provide a safe and supportive, non-judgmental environment where you can learn how to take those tools and bend them to make them work for you and your unique ADHD brain. So what are you waiting for? We'll be starting our winter season on January 11th. So why not get a head start now by going and signing up for our winter interest list at coachingrewired.com. That way you can get kept in the loop to get notified about our winter registration kickoff event. It's never too early to start planning for the new year. So make sure you're on our winter interest list at coachingrewired.com. Come grow with us. One more time, that's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back with Brooke Schnittman, who still has to change her last name legally.
But I won't.
But you won't, and it's okay. Of all those things we think we'll do one day, and then the biggest success we have is just letting it go, of waving the white flag. You know, it's... Okay, consistency. Now, when I started getting into the sort of the professional ADHD space, you know, I would often hear like this is one of the goals of treatment is helping our clients be more consistent. And for me, over time, I started to look at consistency as one of those lagging indicators. We're consistent when we are doing more of something else. And what I discovered that something else to be is being resilient and getting back up, because we're gonna fall, we're gonna trip, we're gonna fail at stuff, but we don't need to kick ourselves when we're down. So if we can recognize that something we didn't work, or if what we intended on doing, we didn't do it, skip the part of beating ourselves up and take step one to come back to it. And over time, the averages become more consistent. What's your 100%. Thinking around consistency?
Exactly that. You know, everyone hears ADHDers are, consistently inconsistent. That's true. But it's more about the persistence in trying week after week, giving that 1% day after day in different ways. It doesn't have to be the same thing every week, but you're consistently trying. And that is what creates more confidence. So you're trying, you're showing up, you're being intentional, you're doing, and that is creating that physiological and emotional change.
That resilience piece, I think that when we can recognize that we are able to get back up and try again and try differently, that makes sense, where that's almost becomes like this cyclical loop of resilience, confidence. Like, oh, I can recover from this. I can learn from this. This mistake is not fatal.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, like some of the mistakes I've made in my business, when I realized that none of them have been like fatal, even the ones that have been really hard, it hasn't sunk the ship, And so it's like, as long as I can find what I can learn from, the challenges that have occurred, like, to me, that's not a bad journey.
Exactly. And that's why, and I know that a lot of coaches do this, but that's why we share our wins and our lessons learned, because you're always going to be learning something. And if you're not learning, then you're not growing. And if you're not learning, then you're not doing the work in 3C activation. So you're not always going to win. You're just not. But
let me ask you this. When I was working with this coach on this coaching program a little over a year ago, and it was actually turned out to not be a good fit for me. because it was this business accelerator. But one of the things that the coach always wanted to start with, which is very common, as you just said, like start with wins. And I found myself getting really annoyed that I just spend time sharing wins. I'm like, can we just get into the work? Like, come on. Like, do you ever have that experience?
Impatience with ADHD. But you should know this is rewiring your brain, right? Like this is what you stand for. This is your company's name. When you share your wins, you're changing your reticular activating system.
Yes, it's the sort of the irony. It was not lost on me because when other people are like, I don't know if I have any wins, and it's like, oh my God, come on.
There's always something.
Always something. And
you got up today.
And I think part of like this non-stop journey of learning and self-discovery, even just to realize that, as we're just talking about earlier, the recognition that, maybe I'm being harder on myself than I realized. The fact that I was having a hard time even just like wanting to spend time to share a win. At the time, I don't think I realized that was me just being hard on myself, like in a way that I'm just like, I just want to focus on what's next.
I refuse to have a win. You're right. Let me just like really feel bad about myself so I can then be triggered to like feel like there's a consequence and I have to do the work, because we're so often thinking that we're doing something wrong. And so then true. That creates this like response in our body that we have to act. And unfortunately, it works sometimes with ADHD because we can't get that initiation to do something unless we feel like there is a deadline or there's a problem or we have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot there. It's
but I think with the wins, we have negativity bias and it is so hard. That's the number one thing that is so challenging for ADHDers to share, including ourselves, because we're constantly looking for the negative in everything. Well, we didn't do this yet. We didn't do that yet. And then we wait and we think about it. And it takes some time to get used to figuring out what we actually are proud of or what a win is. And then it becomes easier to us. And then we see over time that 1% progress towards our goal. Mm-hmm. And we're not so gap focused. We're seeing it and we're feeling more confident.
Mm. So we have the control, we have consistency, we have confidence. You said that part of this system, though, is really about the importance of boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking about boundaries, what's your framework? What do you think about?
So I think of the hierarchy of needs. I know everyone has their own opinion about Maslow, but I think of the ADHD hierarchy of needs and we forget them. Like you said, we don't have wins, right? And how important is that? So just the boundaries of when you're feeling overwhelmed, just check in with yourself. Are you sleeping? Are you drinking water? Are you eating? Are you letting toxic people into your life? Are you spending too much time, whatever that is, focusing on other people's agendas rather than your own? Are you waking up, answering text messages, emails because you're looking for that dopamine fix, or it's a terrible habit, right? But again, that's setting your day chaotically towards other people rather than setting yourself. So really being intentional with your time, your energy, your space, and being able to say no confidently rather than saying yes and then no, because we're going to say no eventually. And then we're going to feel bad about ourselves that we let the person down and let ourselves down.
I think it's so important that any skill or strategy that we're helping our clients with, that they make it their own and find their own sort of flavor of that skill or strategy to really integrate it into who they are. When it comes to the boundary of time and saying no, I tell people, I'm like, just repeat after me. When you've put a commitment on your calendar that it's an important but not urgent project you are working on, it is an important goal for you, and there's no urgent deadline, and someone says, hey, can you meet at this time? And you look at your calendar and like, oh, I have my important but not urgent project time there. What you say is, I'm sorry, I have a commitment. Say, and that's the truth. You made a commitment to yourself. Like, so you're not lying at all. So use that line, put it on your computer screen, like wherever you need to. Because I'm telling you, like, as someone who has experienced more panic attacks than I have hands and fingers to count on, it's usually because I've overcommitted myself. And it's like, and I don't know how to get out of it. Right. And I got tired of having the panic attacks. And I got tired of having all the overwhelm. And so I went from being, a yes, I'll make it work person to I default to no on almost any additional invitation for anything. And then I'll check my calendar after I've said
Yeah,
no.
no first, then yes.
Yes. Because if I really want to, that means I have to actually jump over a hoop that I just set up for myself. So I actually have to do a little bit extra work to make it yes. So that means I really have to want it.
And I love that so much. And I know that my clients share this too, but I feel this too, because we feel, of course, what our clients are feeling very often, that when my nervous system is in shock or it's dysregulated, that's when I'm saying yes to so many things that I really don't want to be doing. That's when I know I have to go back to the basics, treat myself like a baby, as bad as that sounds, and like shut off the yes channel and see what I can get rid of just for the time being so I can set myself back up to a little bit of underwhelm.
That's really valuable.
Yeah.
I know that one of the other, when we first spoke, you said one of the things you would be maybe interested in talking about was delegation with ADHD. So what I want to actually do is take one more quick break. And when we come back, let's talk about delegation, because I think that is such an important part of managing ADHD. And it's not just for business owners, it's for everybody. So we will be right back. All right. It is that time for an ad about a product that doesn't exist, but would be great if it did. Introducing the Fidget Focus Webcam. Are you a mover, a shaker, or simply can't sit still? We get it. Here at ADHD Rewired, we understand that sometimes sitting still just isn't in the cards. Whether you're bouncing or rocking on your favorite chair, or getting your steps in on your new treadmill desk, but don't want to distract others by your movement on your Zoom call, we've got the perfect solution for your video calls. Introducing the Fidget Focus Webcam. With our state-of-the-art motion tracking technology, this camera moves with you. No more awkward moments where you're out of frame because you've leaned just a little bit too much to the left. No more shaky backgrounds that give away your secret dance moves. With features like adaptive motion tracking, where our camera follows your every move, ensuring you're always in focus. And stabilized background. Even if you're bouncing, your background stays put. It's like magic, but it's really just some really cool tech. And HD quality, because you deserve to look your best even when you're doing the cha-cha during a business meeting. And it includes easy setup, plug, play, and get moving. Let's hear from one of our users.
I used to get so many comments about how I moved during meetings. Now they just ask me about my crystal clear video quality.
Join the movement. Get it? The movement. And never let your fidgets disrupt your video calls again. Order your Fidget Focus webcam today and embrace your inner fidgeter. Disclaimer, the Fidget Focus webcam is a parody product and does not actually exist. Any attempt to purchase will result in laughter and possibly a high five for being so enthusiastic. While that doesn't exist, what does exist is all the things we do here on the ADHD Rewired podcast, our coaching community, our Facebook community, our Patreon community, our co-working community. All of that can be found at ADHDrewired.com. All right, we are back. Let's talk about delegation when you have ADHD. So delegating's hard.
It's very hard. And I think it's hard in general, whether you have ADHD or not. So now you put ADHD on top of it and our people pleasing, our negativity bias, feeling like we can't expose the things that we shouldn't do or couldn't do. So we can't tell anyone to help us, right? There's so many things we can't plan in order to know what to delegate. There's so many factors that go into having such a difficult time delegating.
What do you think are some of what are some things you hear when people are resistant to delegating?
I can do it better myself. I don't have the time to tell and come up with a way to delegate it. So I might as well just do it and get it out of the way. I want it done yesterday. So I'm just going to do it myself. I don't have the patience to wait. I don't trust the other person. I don't want to ask for help because it's going to show that I'm weak. People don't want to help me. Why would they want to do that for me?
So let's break those down. So I think the first one was I forgot what you already said about the first one. I was going to write it down, but then I was focused on listening to what you were saying.
That's so nice that you were an active listener.
I am. Just my working memory is only go so far. I think it was about taking more time, or you can do it better yourself. I can do it better myself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you got a client that says, I'm not going to delegate. I'll do it better myself. What's your response to that?
Again, that's okay, you might be able to do it better. Usually when you delegate, the other person should only be able to do like 70% of your capacity anyway. But right now you're at 120% capacity. So what are you giving up by doing that? And you are not able to enjoy the things that you love and have time for. So how much is this thing worth to you that you have to do it yourself? And is there a real deadline for you to do it yourself? Or are you creating that deadline and feeling the pressure of wanting to get it done right then and there because of the impulsivity?
What about the common response we hear of, just faster if I do it myself?
Well, I can tell you certain things that I've discovered and my clients have discovered that they're not as good at and they delegate. So for me, like I'm not as good at the busy work as we spoke about. I'm not good at paper pushing. I'm not good at looking at charts and analyzing numbers and blah, 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 and creating my website. Right. So every time I'm like, okay, I'll get it done faster if I just do it myself. I trick myself because it's been a while since I did it myself. So I get into there and I start. And it's usually when my automatic nervous system is like wacky. So I trick myself to do it. And then I'm like 3 hours in, 4 hours in. Oh, I'm so frustrated when this person could have done it in 30 minutes to an hour and done it well. And their strength is doing it. So like Dan Sullivan talks all about the strategic coach. He talks all about delegating something to someone who actually enjoys it. I know it sounds weird, but people enjoy what we don't like.
Yeah, and it's legit true. And it's also people also enjoy helping as well, right? I always tell people that
Yes.
Look, how do you feel when someone asks you for help and you're actually able to help them? Like it feels good.
Feels good.
So why are you gonna hoard the goodness yourself when you can actually be reciprocate and let somebody else feel good by helping you?
We cannot become a greater version of ourselves by doing things alone. We will live in a box and we will isolate if we try to do everything ourselves. And we have this 3-legged stool, right? So we can only be one leg. We need other people and other things to help us expand and be the best version of ourselves. So yes, you are doing someone else a favor and usually they feel really good, right? Like when someone says, hey, can I help you? It's usually not like, oh, I'm just being kind. So I'm going to ask you if you need help. Like they legitimately want to help you, like you said.
It's funny. So with my current assistant, Lisa, when I brought her on, I was very sort of committed to training, I don't say properly, or doing a better job of training than I had my past assistants. Like a previous one, I basically had them just sit next to me for a couple of weeks while I was doing stuff. Not the best way to do it because it's also not then scalable and repeatable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really motivated to make a good onboarding process when she came on. And for so long I was like the writing process is very kind of overwhelming to me. And so I just kind of had the story in my head of this would be too hard to do. But the motivation was high enough to allow me to try to push through some of those executive function challenges and the stories I was telling myself. And the weirdest thing kind of occurred. I kind of enjoyed doing it, creating the step-by-step process of what I did, because part of what it allowed me to do is also catch some inefficiencies and create some this would actually make way more sense to do it this way. Why am I doing it that? And it did not take as long as I thought I was doing, because I would do short little screencasts.
Mm-hmm.
It would allow me to write out first the step and then record it to check to see if I was actually doing it. I would follow what I just wrote, right, to see if it was the actual process. So it was write it and then check it right away through recording doing it. this actually isn't that bad of a process.
That's good.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of this, like the two in tandem together. I like that. That's interesting.
Because then you get to test it, because if you don't test it, like you create it, because when it comes to creating systems, it's something that I've kind of thought about for a while, is when you have ADHD, it's really hard to create a system outside the context of doing it. So instead of like trying to think about creating this like system separately from doing it, document as you are doing it, not separately.
Absolutely. I think that to your point with that also, so like you do the video, right, of you actually doing it. But what I found helpful in documenting a process is having the person who I want to do it just on the other side. And I'm talking it out, and like, they're usually not even saying anything, but they're just there almost as a body double. But okay, this makes sense, right? Okay, so then we do this, then we do this. Like you're teaching them, and boom, your system's there. And also being okay with the fact that it's probably going to change a lot every week, your system.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone.
What about delegating tasks that are more creative tasks?
Yeah. So as a visionary, like you and I are visionaries because we own our own business and we see the picture. If someone is not starting the creative task with us, then our vision is not being explored with them, right? And we need them to be part of our vision and our creativity together. So starting it with them, brainstorming it with them, so you understand where they're going with the creative task. Or you can like ChatGPT kind of like have them start it, and then you look over it afterwards and make your changes.
How much you're using and recommending to your clients the use of ChatGPT?
I'm not recommending it. Not to say that I wouldn't, but I am using it. I use it when I think of it. It's not like automatic to me because I don't use it enough. But I wrote my book, Activate Your ADHD Potential, right? And in my mind, I said to myself, all right, I am going to ChatGPT this, and I am going to turn this book over in 48 hours, right? I was watching those YouTube videos like, oh yeah, how to write a book in 48 hours or 72 hours, right? With ChatGPT. So I ChatGPT'd my idea, and it gave me like an outline of things to think about. And obviously it wasn't 72 hours. It was more like 72 years. However, just having ChatGPT start for me, I went in a totally different direction. I put in my 3C activation process in it and whatever, but it activated this idea of, I could do this. This isn't challenging. And I tricked myself, not on purpose, but I tricked myself that I'm going to get this book done in 72 hours. And then I was like, obviously I'm not getting it done in 72 hours, but it took away that pressure from having it to be this big thing.
I love that idea because one of the things that I'll sometimes do if I'm either putting something off or I'm feeling kind of intimidated by the scope of a certain project is I play this sort of mental game with myself of like, okay, if I had to get this done in 1 hour, like an impossible, something that would be impossible to do in 1 hour, like if I had to get this thing done in 1 hour, how would I approach it? And for me, I find that super helpful because it really helps me identify all the things that are not necessary. And sometimes I've been like, I surprise myself sometimes on what I can pull off when I really get into that mindset of like, oh my gosh, I only have an hour to create this entire presentation. How am I going to do this?
You don't overcomplicate it. Right? You keep it super simple.
Yes, because I'll get into I want the intro slide to be perfect.
Pretty.
Right.
And it has to be the right font and the right color, and it has to be the right spacing.
I think one of the first times I used this was probably, I think it was even before I started ADHD Rewired. It was in my clinical practice when I was still specializing in autism. And I had goofed on my calendar. I was supposed to give this presentation, what I thought was like, I thought it was 2 weeks later, and it was actually tomorrow.
Oh gosh.
And of course I hadn't even started putting this presentation together yet. So I was like, okay, it's really go time now. I don't have a lot of time to work on this. What am I going to do? So I literally got a blank slide deck, and I just I made about 30 slides. Each slide had 1 or 2 words on it of key concepts. And I think I did the whole thing in about 20 minutes. And it was done. It was fine.
It's amazing.
And it was actually like stylistically, I kind of like the minimalism of it, of just having a word or two on because the whole idea of like having paragraphs on slides, y'all, it's not how you do presentations, people. Like if you're going to be presenting
I used to do that.
please
I'll
don't
be
do
honest.
that. Oh, a lot of people used to. I mean, I'm sure I've done that before too. But when people are like, can I get a copy of your slides? I'm like, my slides don't have the content. It has the supporting visual or just like a cue more for me than anyone else of what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll write an article, and I don't want to write an article.
Just record what I'm saying. There you go.
Yeah.
But you're so right with that. Like I, as a previous teacher, I used to get in the weeds, and I also didn't know I had ADHD at the time. So I used to get in the weeds. I'm like, oh my God, I could do this and be creative with this and, and this and go down this rabbit hole. And now when I can catch myself doing that, I'm like, wait, Brooke, you have more important things to do right now. And that's where that scheduling piece really comes in. I don't care what you say, like you need a schedule. I need a schedule. I look at my schedule. I'm like, I don't have all that time because I see my schedule. There is not 12 hours in there to finish this presentation. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's are you presenting at this year's Chat conference?
I am, but I'm presenting virtual.
What's your topic?
Well, I can't wait to listen to yours. Mine is my book, which is going to be easy for me to present on now that the book is finished. It's really overcoming overwhelm and underwhelm with ADHD. So it's the ADHD, I call it the ADHD disruption spiral. For that, I go from underwhelm to getting that exciting idea, dopamine, then getting hyper-focused, then burning out, then from there getting that RSD, and then feeling anxious, depressed, and overwhelmed. And then it starts over. So I talk about the 3C activation process to help people get through that.
Oh, I like how that all kind of fit together.
Ties in together.
Nice
how about you?
I am going to be presenting on ChatGPT and smart AI, smart like tools for ADHD. When I first started presenting at the ADHD conferences, I was doing a lot of like the apps and all that. And then I started to become like known as the app guy. And then I was like, don't fucking pigeonhole me, like, because I will probably get bored of apps.
I'm more than an app, okay?
Right. And so like people are asking me to do that more presentation apps. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it because and part of it is like I realize how much like it gives people false hope that like there's this tool out there that's going to solve all the issues.
One thing that it's going to overcome all of your ADHD symptoms.
I wish there was a thing.
Hey, that app might help you for a little bit.
Exactly. And it's like I've downloaded and tried all the premium versions of every productivity app that is out there, and they work great for a short period of time.
They'll get you. You'll start for free, and then it's exciting, and then you pay, and then you forget about the payment and the ADHD tax.
Rinse and repeat, right? So I am going to be talking more about the tools, but it's funny. I was originally going to do just on ChatGPT, and then I was starting to get like. In this, when we had to submit the proposals a couple months ago, and it was so rapidly changing, I was like, this could be completely different by the time I present. So I was like, let me include ChatGPT as like a large portion of this, but let me also allow for other sort of tech stuff and tools sort of in there as well. And the more I'm learning about ChatGPT and reading a lot of these like white papers on ChatGPT, like it's a lot to grapple with, because I'm the type of person that wants to learn everything about something so I can be good at explaining and teaching it. Because that's just the way my brain is. Like I need to master in order to understand it at all.
And then move on.
Yeah, and then move on. Although I did put, and it was on my my Twitter feed, I think right on the New Year's, when ChatGPT first came out, I said 2023 is going to be the year of AI. And I still think I'm right about that. Because it is a game changer. Like I probably need to do a whole series on AI and the prompts to use for ChatGPT.
Speaking of ADHD, you know how we like make 1 million Instagram accounts and handles and websites, right? We buy a ton of domains. Well, I bought the domain ADHD and AI. And I also put the Instagram handle that, and I did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So Brooke's selling it to the highest bidder.
Woo!
You know, you haven't even mentioned, you very briefly mentioned your podcast, but I don't even think you shared
that you need to come on.
Yep, I need to come on.
I invited you.
Yep, and I will be there and we'll set that up. But talk about your podcast and how people can reach you as well.
I appreciate that. So my podcast is Successful with 2 L's with ADHD. And the reason why it's called that is because I take people who have ADHD and real journeys, real experiences, and I talk about what it was like before they knew they had ADHD and then the journey after ADHD, because we can all, going back to that community piece, recognize ourselves in other people, and it gives you hope that you can also get to where they are too. So it's not necessarily what the definition of success is, but they're full, they're fulfilled. So Successful with ADHD, I have real ADHDers on there talking about their journeys. I also have experts coming on like Dr. Aim and Dr. Hallowell. I had Gabor Mate. I have the sleep doctor who came on and some other people who are going to share their tips for ADHD. So yeah, Successful with 2 L's on all podcast platforms.
Oh, Brooke Schnittman, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all the things that you are doing in your story and some of the skills that you help your clients with. Give your website one more time and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything is on coaching with Brooke with an E.com. So my handles are coaching with Brooke with an E. My website is coachingwithbrooke.com. So anything that you need help with ADHD related, students, adults, parents, lots of tips on Instagram. And we have a newsletter that we send out every week with tips on ADHD if you subscribe on our website.
Awesome. And Brooke, if you have about 2 extra minutes, I'd like to ask maybe 1 or 2 more questions for our patrons. Are you able to stick around?
I am.
All right. Well, excellent. So if you want to hear the rest of the conversation, become a patron starting at just $5 a month. Just go to our website, ADHDrewired.com. Click on that Patreon tab at the top of the page. It'll take you there. And there's instructions on how to get that private podcast feed so you can get the bonus content and the ads at the very end of the podcast. So without interruption, but you don't miss out on what's going on with ADHD Rewired. So thank you, everyone, and we will catch you next week. So that is a wrap. I want to thank Brooke for joining me today. If you want to get any of the resources mentioned in today's episode, check out the show notes at ADHDrewired.com and click on the podcast tab. And if you are interested in more ADHD-related content about boundaries, then check out episode 456 with Dr. Diana. And why not start a discussion about the topics covered on today's episode by going to our Facebook community that you can get into by going to ADHDrewired.com/community to apply. So you can check out all the things that are happening over there. And if you love the podcast and you find a value in the show and want to support our work, head on over to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon, where you can get this show uninterrupted with announcements at the very end for just $5 a month or more. Think you would benefit from coaching around an ADHD-related issue and want a taste of group coaching? Patrons at just $25 a month or more can join me for a monthly coaching call every 4th Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern. How does boosting your productivity and tackling your toughest projects and to-dos with guided co-working sessions and accountability sound? What about real-time, around-the-clock body doubling and ADHD-friendly co-working? What about a weekly session where you get to create with other creatives, or a weekly session where you get to clean your space with other people doing the same thing? You can get started with all of that in our Adult Study Hall community at adultstudyhall.com. It is free to try for the first week and only $19.99 a month after that. Find everything all at ADHDrewired.com. That's ADHDrewired.com. Thanks again to Brooke for joining me today. And thanks to all of our listeners, community members, Patreon supporters, and everyone, everywhere in between for continuing to make this show possible. And we will catch you next week. And hey, don't forget, come meet me in, I forgot where it was for a moment, in Delaware? Where the hell is the CHAD conference this year? Oh my God. Boston? Maryland. Oh my God. It's in, there's an ADHD conference coming up that I'm speaking at. And if you want to come meet me and like 1,000 other ADHDers, it's fantastic. Go to chadd.org to learn more. Oh, and if you haven't left a review for the podcast on Apple Podcasts or on your preferred podcast platform, we would love it if you did it, especially since it's ADHD Awareness Month right now. That actually does help us get in front of other people's earballs. So that's it. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.